Now at the bottom, the gross margin system has sort of 3 variable costs to it. In my thinking, in arable farming, we have 5 variable costs, which is seed, fertilizer, chemicals, labor, and machinery. And that's what we are benchmarking, okay, down to that level. We're not looking at property costs or admin costs and that sort of thing. We're just arable production on the 5 variable costs. Okay, so next slide, please. So we've done the 17 and 18 harvest based in East Anglia, as I said. So some of the things we've looked at, non-financial, these are the sort of drills that people have been looking at. And this year we're looking at some jointly owned drills. So there's a collaboration actually creeping into these groups of farmers or these individual farmers as a group. So those are the main drills that we've been using. And so the reasons, next slide, the reasons are financial. So 50-50, both of these really. Forget about this bit, mustn't fall off the back. And financial and environmental. So it's a bit of both that people are the reason for doing no-till. But so the key thing is the financial bit, which I'm really interested in. Obviously, this is very important as well, but it's getting the finances and seeing whether the finances actually work. And it's really interesting about all the variables that come together. We've had two goes at it now, as I said, so two sessions. So soil types. There's a whole range of soil types, okay? And in no-till, obviously, soil types has an impact on the method of farming. So there's a different soil types, the same as last year. We had those size of farms in hectares this year. So largest 1,500 hectares, smallest 136 hectares. So a huge range, and that's quite interesting. The average is 747. But it's quite interesting, the dynamics of the different sizes of farms, the larger farms, and then there's the smaller farms as well. And 136 being fairly small. So let's look at some numbers. Okay, so next one. So average no-till, an average LFB survey. That's a survey that we do in Land Family Business. It's an LFB survey. And I've been doing benchmarking since 1992, which is a long, long time. So these are some of our latest figures in here in the LFB survey. So we're comparing LFB survey, which is mainly traditional farming, with a group of actually no-tillers. Winter wheat, tons per hectare, about a ton per hectare difference. Down, okay? And this is what we found last year as well, about a ton per hectare down difference. So oilseed rape is a bit quirky. The results, these are actual results, 347 compared to 2889, but that's the actual results. And winter barley, we have roughly about the same, okay, yields. There are many spring crops in there, rather than go through them all in detail. Those are the sort of looking at the main crops. So in pound notes, then, we have the output. The output 760 versus just over £1,000 a hectare. Okay, so that's quite a drop. And the key difference here at this line here is the actual spring cropping. And we mustn't forget we had the 18 season, which was quite extreme in terms of weather in the spring and the summer. And that had a huge impact on spring cropping, of course. So, and variable cost, 364 compared to 438. Gross margin at the bottom is 397 compared to 592. Okay, so this is at the gross margin. So, and I said that we don't look at people that look at gross margins. We're looking at gross margin less labour and machinery costs, which is the 5 variable costs, rather than, because I'm really questioning the gross margin system in arable farming. So one of the key points in both of those, actually at the bottom, 397 and 592, is the huge variation between them. There's a variation within them, There's a huge variation within no-till, huge variation within the land family business. So let's look at some of the variations in the no-till themselves. Winter wheat, we did see the average of 7.28. You can see it ranges from 5.5 up to 9. So you can see that that's in the no-till, the actual wheat average wheat's range, goes up to 9 tons a hectare. And so this is some interesting things are coming through. Oilseed rape difference, 3 up to 4. Winter barley, 4 up to 7. So the variable costs vary from 247 up to 450. Okay, down there. And the gross margin you saw is the average of 397. The average of 397 is within the range is 196, 200 up to 650. Okay. And the 650 is above the average in LFB. The average in LFB was 592. Okay, so you can see now there's a range in there. Actually, although the average is lower in no-till, the range goes well beyond the average in the LFB survey. Okay, swiftly moving on because we started late. So let's have a next slide. So moving on to the labour and machinery, and this is an interesting bit, I think. So the cost per hectare down 22%, difference between no-till. Okay, so the no-till average is 350, total labour and machinery, and the LFB, which is the traditional farming, our main benchmarking is 449 pounds per hectare. So let's look at those in a bit more detail. Okay, so we have got a paid labour figure in here of 101 versus LFB of 64. Now, that's a bit of a quirky situation in the group we have got a bit of a hangover in some estates of labour, which we need to probably fine-tune into more arable. But they are figures. We don't distort the figures. The figures that I'm showing you are the actual figures that we produce. Depreciation, see the difference there, 125, 158. Now, the key driver of machinery costs is the amount of machinery you have, or the value of machinery you have. That's the key driver. And the key driver of profitability in arable is the amount, I think, the KPI, if you like. The key performance indicator is the value of machinery per hectare. And we'll be looking at that in a bit more detail in a couple of slides' time. Repairs about the same, 57. Contract, 19 versus 94. Okay. And fuel, 36 versus 54. Fuel is a lot lower, as you would imagine. Other bits and pieces, 12 versus 21. So that is the figures I showed you on the previous slide, 350 and 449 are those totals there. 350, 449, labour and machinery. So that is quite a difference. So what we want to look at now, just look at moving on to working capital. And so in machinery value per hectare within the group itself, the benchmarking group is 668, which is £270 an acre. Sorry, revert back to acres occasionally. And our LFB survey, 834, which is 337. So a difference of £186, and I said this is the key driver of profitability now. It's £186 of saving of capital tied up in machinery. Okay. Variable costs are lower in the group itself as well, at 364 versus 438. So we've got £74 a hectare there. Total saving, 260. So it's £260 less. Now the key thing, and one of the key problems we have in arable farming, in all our clients that we look after, is the working capital requirements, and the machinery has been creeping up. Machinery inflation has been creeping up dramatically over the last few years. So in a 500 hectare farm, the saving is 130,000. Okay, and I've spoken to people outside our group actually who have said to me that they've moved into a min-till and down into a no-till system and paid off their overdrafts. And so a couple of people have said that, and this actually shows that there is less money tied up in no-till. Okay, so we need to be looking at this from several different angles, I think. Last year we looked at it in terms of pounds per acre last year, sorry. Pounds per hectare per acre. But it's a lot, like working capital is so important in the industry as well. And as you all know in your businesses, the working capital is quite important. So let's recap on where we are, okay. Key points. We have lower yields, which you saw. We have lower working capital, which we've just been through. And then one of the things I've just repeated a couple of times, the main driver of profit is machinery costs and the machinery value. So one of the things we thought we would do, we would look at machinery capital per ton. Now, I haven't seen these figures before. We thought we would actually look at it because if you think about it, we've got lower yields, which is a key component of what we're looking at, okay? And we have machinery capital. So why don't we look at those as a ratio of each other, or machinery capital per ton? So the next slide should be the machinery capital per ton of wheat. So we just looked at wheat, which is one of the main, obviously the main crops. Groundswell 17. £76.51, and I said I've never seen these figures. Never seen these figures published anywhere before, or anybody done any work on this before. £76.51, up this year in the latest figures of £97.60. The main benchmarking group, £110.87. So even though we have a lower yield, okay, which is a ton a hectare, lower, we saw earlier on, we have higher machinery costs. The actual capital tied up per ton of wheat is lower. Not a lot, it's 97 compared to 110. The year before was 76. So I think that is a really interesting figure. So we're starting to think about this. What we've seen in no-till, as far as, to some of the people who have actually come to see me and said, look, it doesn't work, it's got lower yields. But that's too simplistic a view, isn't it, really? And this is why I'm trying to bring all these different concepts in now. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, which is we're getting even more complicated now. So looking at cost per ton, the key point now is we have got a ton a hectare less. We've got less tons to sell. Okay, in no-till there are less tons per hectare, so less tons per farm, if you like, of equal size to sell. So therefore you'd think, right, less tons, so that doesn't add up. But it's the less tons at a higher margin. Less tons at a higher margin versus more tons at a lower margin in the LFB. Okay, and I hope you can see that difference. So just go through that point in a bit of detail. Okay, so the cost of production in pounds per hectare in the lower tons, which is in the Groundswell, which is in the no-till, which is 714. Okay, the LFB, cost of production per hectare, which is the labour, machinery, seed, fertiliser, chemicals. So we've got more tons, but we've got a cost production of 887. Okay, so we need to look at that ratio now. There's a difference there of £173 per hectare. Okay, £173 per hectare, but we are, as I said, we are down by a ton. Just in wheat at the moment, we are down by 1 ton per hectare. So if we move on to the graph. Okay, so what I'm trying to show here is the fact that we have that the blue line is a margin of about just under £300 per hectare. Okay, £300 per hectare margin there. So to achieve that same margin, we need, because of the lower cost of production, we need 7.2 tons of wheat. To achieve the same margin in LFB, in conventional farming, we need 8.4 tons, okay, for the same margin. Now, I think that is really interesting, and I said I haven't seen any other work done on this before, and so we're going to be moving this concept forward, hopefully looking at this as we move forward in the next. We have another group meeting in just after drilling this year on one of the larger farms we've got. So we'll be discussing these points. Okay, so I think that is really, really interesting, and actually sort of brings it home. And what I'm trying to do, as I said, just not look at gross margin per hectare or per acre, but actually look at bringing the dynamics of all the variables together. And I think that summarizes it quite well, or confuses it quite well, whatever. However, I hope you can understand that. Basically, 7.2 tons, and it's standardised at £140 a tonne, by the way, in here for calculate to keep them the same. 7.2 times 140 is 714. Times 140 minus the 714 we had is 294. Okay, and that's that And that is 294 there. So, and then the other one is 8.4 tons at 140 minus 887 is 289. Okay, so you can see that's the same margin but different yields. Okay, so next, so just a point in here, yield is king. So there should be a question mark about that, and I have quite a few banters and debates with people about yield is king, and there may be some of you here that want to actually say that still think yield is king. We're 1:45. We got the next session at 1. We started late, so I'll be another couple of minutes. We might not be able to have time for questions, unfortunately, because we started late. I have a stand down there. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll be there for the next few hours, hopefully, or all the rest of the day. I'm here tomorrow as well. So economic yield is king, I think, rather than yield is king. Okay, and I think that's what we would need to be talking about. So I just want to say a few words about collaboration. And there's a few points here. So I'm actively involved in collaboration in the industry, machinery syndicates, share farming, contract farming. I'm not such a big believer in. I think share farming is a lot better than contract farming is not a joint venture as far as I'm concerned. So labour and machinery, quantifiable and transparent. It's actually pooling machinery into a separate pool, if you like, and limited liability partnership. It gives you the focus on that labour and machinery. Scrutiny of best practice as well. Economies of scale, 2 farmers coming together, 1 combine instead of 2, all that sort of thing. And it's a platform to sense check new ideas, and that's what we're finding in the group as well, actually, when we get together. New ideas, what do you think? And actually, they've got a WhatsApp group. There's an official WhatsApp group and an unofficial one, apparently. I'm not in the unofficial one. I'm only in the official WhatsApp group. And so in the background, there's the dark group, or whatever you call it, going on. So in the group. So this is one thing I wanted to really here. This point here, I think that is a really important. You've seen a lot in the press about well-being in the industry. And how it's such a lonely situation. And joint ventures really, and you don't see much about this, you just see about the pound notes in joint ventures, but I think increases the well-being of the farmers involved. And I've seen this coming together, working as a group, and everybody's a lot happier. Okay, because stress is a really important thing in the industry. Flexibility in labour and knowledge sharing, I think, is the key thing. Very, very important. And knowledge sharing is I've seen it in practice in the last 12 months in the group, mainly in the as I said, in the official WhatsApp. What do you think of this sort of thing? So, moving on and finalising, profit from arable is now. With this provider at the top, no account has been taken for the increase in soil health and other environmental benefits. The no-till profit from arable, which is not the gross margin, as I said, it's my gross margin after the 5 variable costs. The range 200 down to minus 80 per hectare, and the average is 53. Okay? LFB profit from arable, the range is 255 down to 85. And the average is 144. Okay, so the range is the importance, and obviously the average is a figure, but I think the range is more important than the average because you can actually move the average by knowledge sharing and by doing what we're doing. So the last slide, and I make no apology for repeating this. This is the slide I had last year. Some of you who were here last year will see this. The key points and conclusions, as I said. Knowledge sharing is so important. Seen it in practice, and it's really working well. Yield is no longer king. We need to be different. We need to have this different approach, way of thinking. And individuals, and still most of you, if not all of you here, are questioning convention, taking risks, and innovative. And I think I find it really, really interesting to be involved in the benchmarking group. And I'd just like to thank the group for asking me to be involved with them. I think the group are all of those bullet points. They're not bullet points, tick points actually. Those tick points at the bottom, the Groundswell group are all of those, and it's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to work with them, and hope I'll be asked to keep on driving this forward and looking at this situation. And the last slide, I think. Thank you very much. And hope you found all that interesting. Happy to chat anything through. I don't think we've got the next session's at 1 o'clock and it's 10 to now. May not have a time for any talk, Mr. Chairman. No, okay. So sorry, no questions. But really happy. I'd really like you to ask questions. Come down and see us, challenge, or whatever you want to do, and ask questions on the stand. And they're here today, and they're here the rest of the show tomorrow as well. Thank you all very much.